Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to SMARTEXPO. Need to just mute. This is our SMARTEXPO protection. We look forward to having you all here. I'd just like to introduce myself to you as the Master of Ceremonies for today. I'm John Comley. My day job, I'm the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for Core2 Africa. With me today, Denise Mzike. She's the Event Coordinator for SMARTEXPO. She'll be coming on a little bit later to say hello and to give out the gift vouchers, which we will be giving away at the end of the SMARTEXPO. Right, so the SMARTEXPO agenda, let me just walk you through that quickly to give you a feel for what we're going to be going through today. We'll just tell you briefly about what SMARTEXPO is. We'll then give a little bit of a framing of this SMARTEXPO itself, which is around the theme of protection. We then go on to the speakers that we have today for you today: Mark Campbell, Roy Michoma, Waseem Ebrahim, and Peter Goodwin, all standing by ready to deliver some really good presentations to you. And then at the end of it all, our spin to win, you have to be in it to win it. You've got to stay till the end. We're giving away 3 $100 Amazon gift vouchers. So make sure that you are here till the end to be able to qualify to win one of those gift vouchers. Right, so about SMARTEXPO. Why SMARTEXPO? Well, this COVID-19 pandemic brought a lot of restrictions upon all of us, and I think integrators, OEMs, our customers have all felt the impact of the COVID-19 restrictions, and where we haven't been able to interface with each other in a normal manner. And so what SMARTEXPO hopes to bring to you is bring technology updates to the telcos, the service providers, and mobile operators. And obviously to capitalize on FaceTime with our joint customers. So our OEMs, our original equipment manufacturers, and ourselves have been restricted in seeing our customers. And we just felt this is a great way for us to jointly be in front of you as our customers. What we bring to you is the latest trends, technology updates, product updates, and hopefully in a very nice, exciting live expo feel. What the OEMs bring to you, short 15-minute updates. These are not long, in-depth presentations. They're going to give you a top-level view of their products that relate to protection. They're going to allow you to contact them. So each of these presenters, these speakers, at the end of the SMARTEXPO, you'll get an email that gives you their contact details, and you can make contact with them either directly on their mobile phones or via email. We've also produced smart guides, which are information packs that relate to the SMARTEXPO event. So each of the OEMs, each of the presenters today, will be able to give you all the links that relate to that presentation in a smart guide. You'll have the opportunity also through those smart guides to contact them for any deep dive opportunities, to be able to get your teams together to ask for a deep dive opportunity, and obviously any one-on-one questions that you may have. Finally, I'd just like to recognize the main sponsor. Core2 Africa is sponsoring these SMARTEXPO events, and we'll give them a little bit of a shout out later in the SMARTEXPO. Right, so SMARTEXPO protection. What is protection? I think protection can be defined in a multitude of different ways depending on what the context is of protection. In terms of what we're talking about here, which is the protection of a service provider, a mobile operator, a telco, protection is the identification and mitigation of risk, and it's doing what is needed to ensure the continuity, reliability, redundancy, and sustainability of business. And obviously, the one that comes to the top of mind there is security. We all know we deal with security within our businesses all the time. But beyond that, there's the fraud detection, there's revenue assurance. These all come into the umbrella of protection. And obviously, there's a lot of other threats internal and external, which I know that some of our presenters are going to be speaking to today. Right, so here we are. We at the delivered at SMARTEXPO, which is the main part of this event, and we have got 4 speakers lined up, as I said to you. 15-minute power pack presentations. There won't be a question and answer session. We don't really have the time for that. We're trying to keep this as short and sharp as possible. You do, as I said earlier, have the opportunity to ask any of the presenters a question one-on-one by emailing them or phoning them after this event. So post-event access, you will have a replay of the event. You can, when you get the email from us, there will be an archive. If you click on the archive link, you go through, you can replay this event. You will have access to all the Smart Guide downloads for the presentations. You can request a technical deep dive session. And as I said just now, ask a question of any speaker. That's what the archive looks like. So when you go through to the archive page, you will see that. And as I've just said, you can click on a link, you can download the Smart Guide, book a deep dive, or ask a question. And just to show you what that looks like, there is an example of the Smart Guide, the one we prepared for today for Infoblox. So thank you, Peter, for giving that to us to put up on our slide. Right, so the first speaker today, Mark Campbell, is going to talk to us on a presentation, Guardians of the Connected World. Let me introduce Mark to you. I've known Mark for many years. Mark Campbell has worked in the internet service provider, mobile internet provider, and security industry for over 20 years. He has been employed by Siemens Telecom, Cisco Systems, and now Netscout, we know which was acquired by Arbor, that acquired Arbor Networks, I beg your pardon. Mark holds multiple industry certifications, including CCDP, CCIE, and CISSP. Oopsie, I gotta just come out of this. And please welcome Mark. I'm going to just change over to you, Mark, as the speaker. So Mark Campbell, Guardians of the Connected World. Over to you, Mark.
Excellent. Thanks for that kind introduction there, John. Can you see my presentation?
We can see it. Thank you. And we can hear you. Thank you, Mark.
Excellent. Thank you. So like John mentioned, our theme is Guardians of the Connected World, and that's also our company slogan. So when we talk about protection as Netscout and as Arbor, we talk about mainly 3 areas of protection. So availability protection, protecting your services, and protecting you against threats. So when it comes to availability protection, this is often one that is compromised by distributed denial of service attacks. And these are threats to the availability of your services, your applications, or any asset that is on your network, or even downstream, your customers' networks. When we talk about service protection, we also call this service assurance. This is where we're very interested in the control plane of your environment. So is the signaling happening as designed? Are the sessions being set up? Because without the sessions and the signaling, the users can't access your network. And the ultimate goal is obviously for the user plane to be effective, for them to be able to transfer the data and use your network as they plan. When it comes to security assurance, this is where we are very concerned about the threat actors owning internal systems. We know that they start off oftentimes by reconnaissance against your environment, planting some malwares or botnets where they can do credential theft, ransomware. We also want to look at insecure applications running inside your environment to be able to fend off internal attacks that are launched by them. So at a very high level, these are some of the areas that we want to guard against as guardians of the connected world. So we're looking at protecting the availability of your network and services, as well as looking at the threat actors that are against your network. So these are just some of the challenges excuse me, that we see that service providers battle with, that we deal with on a daily basis. And you might have many more to add to this list. But these are just some that I thought would be worth highlighting in our discussion today. So we know that there's been a huge increase in demand on the service provider networks, especially now with the COVID and the lockdown. A lot more are reliant on the internet. So that means that your network has to be a lot more reliable so that they can continue their services. And because of the usage patterns, we see that there's been a huge shift in the peering and transit patterns across networks. Because now over-the-top players are offering their video conferencing services that are being used widely. You know, there are many remote workers that are now very dependent on accessing corporate resources using the VPN concentrators that are open to them on the internet. We see a lot of the users are very concerned about how they're going to spend their time. So they're streaming a lot, they're using social media a lot at home to pass the time. So this has also led to a shift in the demand on networks. All the while, you also have to introduce new functionality into your environments. And this could be because of new technologies or because of a solution that a new vendor could offer. This results in a very complex environment for you to manage and to operate. You need to open up APIs, you need to allow external companies to code against those APIs. So there's a huge amount of interdependencies that occur because of these functions that you need to open up in your environment. So a lot of challenges that we see out there. To keep yourself relevant in the service provider space, you have to keep abreast of the latest technologies and implement them, like software-defined networks, network function virtualization, self-organizing networks, self-healing, self-scaling networks, application-aware networks. And then if you look at 5G, things like mobile edge computing, local area data networks, these are all new complex technologies that you need to look at implementing and then manage and operate down the line. And while you're implementing these new technologies, while you're increasing the functionality and while your network is growing because of demand, well, you need to look at cutting costs. From an operational perspective, you need to think about the staff, you have to think about the skills that you have. The bean counters often want us to move to the cloud. Now you're introducing third parties into your environment. You also have to sweat your assets for longer, and all these assets, your infrastructure, are they still performing as expected? And over all of this, you need to consider your security posture. What is that looking like? Opening up all these new technologies, opening up your network to external parties, all these new users coming along. What is it doing to your security and threat posture ultimately? So these are some of the challenges that we see service providers are facing that we want to address with our technologies and with our solutions. So if we discuss a very high-level service provider architecture, on the left-hand side here, we have an example of a mobile network. You have your radio access network on the left there, aggregating mobile subscribers, comes in via the core network and ultimately to the IP network. If you're a fixed line operator, well, you might have some DSL services or fiber to the business or fiber to the home kind of services that you're aggregating. And these all rely on your IP network to control some of the signaling aspects, the DNS, the DHCP, the identity services, and then some content services like video and voice and video via IMS. If anything is not available on it, well, this is where you need to have access to the internet and provide that peering and transit to the content providers and the apps that are very popular on the internet today. From a corporate perspective, the Office 365 and the Skype for Business and any other cloud provider, we might be hosting some content or where the users need to access content. On the right-hand side, this could be a hosting service provider where they're hosting a couple of systems, virtual systems or physical machines to access, to provide some services to the internet. In that environment, you could perhaps have an enterprise, a corporate customer connecting via the campus network or aggregating some wide area network on the right-hand side there. So multiple ingress points and multiple paths through the network, multiple components and moving parts that we need to take care of within a modern service provider network. So what is it that we offer as Netscout? Considering those challenges that we discussed earlier, where do we touch the network to be able to offer you some value? So first and foremost, we have our control and user plane monitoring solution called TrueCall for the mobile network, ISNG for the packet network, and then that all gets managed by the nGenius One console. So we want to be able to give you a view of the sessions across the network, the user traffic, the control plane traffic, and any kind of issues that we uncover. So the main point is that the whole solution and all of the Netscout solution offerings are vendor agnostic. So this is a great start in reducing your tool clutter. And we know that many vendors come into your environment, they have their own management systems, you've got to try and integrate them. It can be quite a mess. So our philosophy is that the packets don't lie. So looking at the network traffic, we boil all of this to the top for you to use that to manage your environment. So if it's anything that's deployed within the cloud, we can even add that to our instrumentation and to our telemetry to be able to give you a good view of what's happening in your environment. So some of the use cases here, if it's a mobile network, from a 5G perspective, we want to help you with your radio planning. So one use case is we can see where all the 5G capable handsets are. And this will give you a good indication of where you should launch your 5G services first. If there are drop calls or handover issues, we want to bring these to the fore, help you with call tracing, geo-analytics, see how subscribers are moving through your network. If there's any gaps in your coverage, any radio resource issues, we want to bring this to the fore, give you reports on the handsets that are being used, the vendors that are within your environment, the software versions that are running, to help you understand what are the best and worst performing handsets out there. We could also simulate drive tests, and that is a great way to reduce costs to do some network quality testing with our technology. From a control plane perspective, like we said, we want to understand the signaling. Without the signaling working properly, users can't register, they can't access your network. So we look at things like fault codes, trends of fault codes across the network. If there's a resource issue that's on your identity services, if the network isn't getting an IP address fast enough, why is that? Where's the issue? All of these areas from a session and from a signaling perspective, we want to be able to help you troubleshoot and build a good view over time. Perhaps you've done some upgrades to your network. How's your network performed before the upgrades, and is it now better or worse after the upgrade? A lot of our tools can give you that kind of view into your network. How are the service enablers on your network? And we would term DNS as an example, a service enabler. So we know that there's a huge reliance on DNS working properly to get the users to the content and to the content providers and to use local content versus international content. So are there any issues with DNS? Is latency being introduced because of the DNS transactions not working properly? When there's VoIP calls across the network, is it the user that's having a problem? Is it the network that's at fault, or the servers and the gateways? Is traffic being load balanced properly? These are all some of the services and the user data plane reports that we want to be able to give you that is of use to you in your environment. And there are many, many more. There's huge interdependencies created because of all these services running on a network. How are those interdependencies mapped? If you upgrade one system, what effect would it have on another? And these are just some of the challenges that we want to approach or address with our solutions. And like John said, I'm just giving a very high-level overview of some of the use cases that our solution offers. And feel free to set up a one-to-one with myself or my team. We're happy to delve into a lot more detail. So let's talk about availability protection for a while. Now, we know distributed denial of service attacks have been a headache for many providers for many, many years. And as Arbor Netscout, we've been dealing with these for over 20 years now. So we have solutions to detect DDoS attacks across your backbone, to mitigate the effects of these attacks, and then to get down to the packet level, if it's an application layer attack, if it's a state exhaustion attack, or even a volumetric attack against your network. We have the solution set to be able to deal with all of these, again, in a vendor-agnostic way. If you're using Huawei, Juniper, Cisco, Nokia, it does not matter. Our solutions integrate in an open standards way into all of these networks. Now, deeper inside your data center or your corporate network, for example, you want to look for threats. So this could be where the attackers have got in. They are now trying to own your equipment. They're doing reconnaissance, data exfiltration, lateral movement from a security perspective. This is where we can help with our CyberStream and Arbor Threat Analytics solution to look at the packets once again. We don't rely on other vendors, firewalls, or load balancers or IPS to feed us information. We look at the packets. The packets don't lie. And that's where we find the malwares and the botnets and the command and control activity to be able to expose those. Lastly, you have your network for a purpose, and you want to see how your network is performing. So we have ways to do synthetic user plane testing across your environment. So this is our NG Pulse solution. So you deploy these endpoints. These could be physical hardware that you deploy in strategic locations, or this could be virtual on laptops or any other Linux or Windows machines. And we can now simulate, we call them business transaction tests. So you could simulate a VoIP call between two endpoints, look at the mean opinion score. You can even make a phone call to an external number, and that'll give you an indication of how your network is performing. From a over-the-top or cloud provider perspective, like Office 365, you could get a user to log into Office 365, download his mail, upload a PowerPoint, log off, and every step of the way, we can tell you how your network is performing from a latency, round-trip time, path discovery perspective. And again, you can compare these values over time to see, is my network improving or is it getting worse? So a lot of different use cases to implement with these solutions that we have at your disposal. And they'll all integrate, that you have a way to share data between all the platforms that we have available to you. So talking about these service provider challenges once again, we address these with our suite of products. So the increase in the demands that you're having, the complexity of your network that's increasing, the new technologies that you need to look at and operate, all the while you have to cut down your operational expenses. And looking at your security posture overall, we want to be able to give you the comfort that we are one of the few vendors that are in this unique position to look across these challenges from an end-to-end perspective across your network. If it's in a cloud environment, or if it's in a on-net environment, we have the tools to aggregate that data for you. So we do have quite a broad range of products, like we said initially. We're happy to do deep dive sessions. If you call us up after this presentation or email us, we can go into these in more detail, whichever of these areas interest you the most. So we have our service provider solutions for service assurance, our NG1, Ingenious Business Analytics Session Analyzer, the RAN Analytics product range. We have NG1, NG Pulse to give you an idea of how traffic is performing through your data centers, your enterprise networks, and do these synthetic tests. We have the Arbor security range to look how your network is being attacked, how we can mitigate these attacks, and many other BGP peering and transit analytics we can offer in that space as well. And this is all backed up by our Arbor threat intelligence. So we have a team of security engineering researchers that look at the common threats, the modern threats, and how they affect your environment. And we publish all of this detail down into your environment. So I think I'll end there. Again, we're happy to talk about any of these products in more detail, any of these solutions, any of these challenges that you might face in more detail, and come up with something that could potentially add a lot of value to your network. Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, Mark, and that was a really great presentation. I really enjoyed it. Wonderful to see how you positioned the service provider architecture and how Netscout Arbor provide the different solutions into that. I think what's been very interesting for me to see in the last few years is how Netscout and Arbor have come together, and it's almost a joint platform now. And I think there's a lot of benefits to the end user, the customer, in the Arbor acquisition by Netscout. So that was really great. Thank you very much for that. Right, so next up we have securing the network today for 5G tomorrow. Our speaker is Roy Michoma. He's going to speak to us. Well, let me just introduce Roy firstly. Roy is a principal solution consultant for Oracle Communications, Eastern and Southern Africa. He has 14 years experience in the telecommunications industry, 5 years with Oracle Communications, and previously having worked at Nokia Solutions and Safaricom Kenya. Roy is specialized in core networks and signaling solutions covering 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G network, and has over 14 years experience in the telecommunications industry, have allowed Roy to gain a wealth of knowledge in service provider operations, managed services operations, and OEM equipment vendor sales, consulting, and solution architecture. So let's welcome Roy. I'm going to get you up next, Roy. Just give me 1 second. Here we go. And I'm going to hand control over to you. There we go. Roy, you have the floor.
Thank you. 1 minute.
We can see you and hear you. Great. Thanks, Roy.
Okay. Thanks for the introduction. I hope you can see my presentation.
Yeah, we've got you, Roy. Thank you.
So, thanks, John, for the introduction. As you said, my name is Roy Michoma. I'll go through our Oracle Communications solutions covering protection. My presentation will cover securing your network today for 5G tomorrow. So, our CEO, Larry Ellison, always states that this is a statement that he put out, that we don't tolerate plane crashes. And for example, Ford, quality is job number 1, and in aviation, job is number 2. How about securities in our data center? I don't think as service providers we take this very the priority it requires, and we have to rethink that as an industry as we are going through an evolution and a migration through our networks. So I'll take you through the state of network security, telecommunication security, the industry response, and the Oracle Communications approach and solution to this. So what is the state of telecom security? So security has become a hottest topic in 5G conversations today. This is because 5G is going to a well-known protocol, HTTP and HTTP2, that has been there in the IT space for years. However, traditional service provider protocols such as SS7, SIP, and Diameter are still having security issues, and more security issues are being discovered as we are evolving the network. And part of what I'm talking about through my presentation is that as we evolve and as we take 5G security front and center, we don't forget our foundations in telecoms, which is SS7, SIP, and Diameter. And we have to protect these protocols and protect these networks that run these protocols and have them secure. So we have a myriad of communication fraud losses happening year in, year out, from SIP attacks to denial of service, service theft, call pumping, nuisance calling, spoofing, and financial theft. This definitely is an issue that service providers need to take front and center, as it affects their customers and their brand visibility and the PR. So I'll give you an example of a service provider in Germany where an attack where SMSs for the two-factor authentications were redirected, and this two-factor authentication used to access their financial platform. So this actually happened and had their customers lose a lot of money. And this highlights on how secure communications, what we thought of secure communications, such as SMSs or even a call, are vulnerable. So how important is the information on your network? How much do you value it? How is the sensitivity, and what is the impact of a breach in your network to your customers and to your brand? So as an industry itself, telecoms came up with security guidelines that all service providers should take. You should take time and go through this. These are documents written by the GSMA forums on how to manage your network and how to manage the telecommunication protocols that are overlaying over the IP network. So IP network security is well known, and that can be secure. However, the overlying protocols can be attacked, which now you're running your SIP, diameter, and SS7 protocols on top. And how does Oracle Communication approach this? So we are front and center in these initiatives and all these technical working groups from 3GPP, GSMA, ITF, ITU. We have quite a number of employees in leadership positions in these groups and writing the security standards. And out of this, we have developed internally a framework that we apply to our products, ensuring security for service providers. So we provide world-class security with adherence of standards, tracking and record protection. We use predictive capabilities, and we protect and we use analytics and data. We have flexible delivery. We can deliver our products on-prem, hybrid, and cloud. And we have extensible platform that we use open-based systems and carrier-grade systems. So one of our products that we have is a unified signaling core. As service provider, you run multiple networks. So you have your 2G, 3G network that run with SS7. Then you have your 4G LTE network that run with the diameter protocol. And we have your 5G and your emerging 5G network running with HTTP2. So we'll provide you a unified signaling core that provides security as one of the functions of this platform. So as highlighted in red, this is our security application running on this signaling unified signaling core. So for the SS7 network, we have your stateless and stateful firewall. This is part of the this is part of the features that are offered within the STP platform. So you can deploy it as a standalone firewall or as a platform that has STP and routing capabilities, network congestion capabilities, EIR and number portability as a combined platform or as a standalone signaling firewall function. On the same platform that we can deploy our 4G diameter routing agent or a DEA or a DRA. We also have a stateful and stateless firewall feature for diameter networks, and also deploy the same platform as a 5G firewall for the HTTP traffic coming into your network. So the platform can be deployed is very flexible, as mentioned before, can be deployed on COTS servers, is capable of running over NFV, OpenStack, VMware. And for the 5G platform, we have it also can be run on Kubernetes and Docker containers. Additionally, we have security issues when we have migrated from traditional TDM voice for service providers and moving to SIP interconnect and having voice over IP service providers. So we provide a solution called a service border controller that provides security and a SIP firewall protecting your network at interconnect between the link between two service providers, and also protects you against attacks from your own subscribers and own subscribers latching into your network. So as part of it, we deploy it as an access border protection and interconnect border protection. Provides security features such as security, call routing, interoperability, and encryption. And finally, to have any success in securing a network, visibility is mandatory and is front and center to have a visibility of your network to ensure that you know what is happening and you can actively manage ongoing real-time threats. So on this aspect, Oracle provides a product called a performance, it's shortened here as a PIC. It's a performance intelligence center that does monitoring of all networks that service provider provides. So you can have your 2G, 3G CDMA, 2G, 3G GSM, 4G LTE, voice over LTE, 5G standalone, IMS and VoIP, wireline and cable. So this covers a whole extensive protocols, and we have on-prem acquisition using our own products, or we can use port mirroring, in physical port mirroring or virtual port mirroring. This can be deployed either on-prem or on cloud. So a good thing to note about this product is that it is vendor agnostic. You don't have to have Oracle Communications infrastructure to monitor. So this monitors any network running on any vendor. And we provide all analytics and KPI dashboards to help you have the visibility on what is happening on your network. So putting this and finalizing is that Oracle has many years of experience in signaling networks. And signaling networks are the backbone of our telecommunication industry, being SS7, SIP, diameter, and now HTTP. We have experts that can help you figure out your network and what is required to protect your network. With our experience in the product and the people, we will definitely help you protect your network. So on my final words is that Oracle Communications, as I've mentioned, we have leadership in signaling, media, and policy, and the leadership in the fraud industry. We would be happy to have deep dive sessions within the products I've mentioned. That would be the unified signaling core handling the SS7 network, a diameter network, a 5G network, the session border controller that handles your SIP and VoIP telephony, and finally our monitoring tool, the Performance Intelligence Center, that gives you visibility on your network. So I am open to having any questions directed to me through email or phone, or my phone contacts that will be provided to you. And I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Roy. That was really great. Let me just take control back to myself. Thank you, Roy. Really good to have you present to us. And I must say, that number you put up at the start of your presentation, service theft 40%, is just a phenomenal number. And I think it's something that all service providers out there need to be looking very closely at in terms of the protection of their businesses. Just incredible also to see the richness of the Oracle portfolio. I mean, every time I see you present, I see new things, new ideas, new technologies and products. And I certainly, just having watched your presentation now, I'm going to be calling on you to update me on a couple of those. So thank you very much, Roy. That was a really enjoyable presentation. Let's move on. So I have a problem with a missing mouse. I'm sorry about this. Okay, here we go. Right, so next up from Juniper, we have Waseem Ebrahim, and he's going to be talking to us SP security in 5G and IoT. I'd like to introduce Waseem to you, for those of you that don't know him. Waseem Ebrahim is a senior systems engineer and architect responsible for Juniper's service provider technical strategy and execution in sub-Saharan Africa. Waseem is part of a team of technical experts that are responsible for assisting customers in transitioning to next generation IP networks, software-defined networking, and cloud. As a Juniper employee, Waseem places a special focus on engineering simplicity and cost optimization. He has more than 15 years of experience in the service provider industry across Africa. So please, will you help me welcome Waseem with his presentation, SP Security in 5G and IoT. I'm going to hand over control to you now, Waseem. Right, we can see your presentation. We can't see you.
I apologize to you and the audience. I have a bit of a fiber problem at the moment, so in order to get the voiceover correctly, I just switched off the webcam. It hasn't been working well since yesterday. A shout out to you, John. Well done on the tie. I think it looks smashing for a virtual innovation day. 10 out of 10. And thank you to Andre Froneman, who's our lead partner account manager, who's on the call as well. For getting Juniper on this. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here as well. And you guys can direct any queries and questions to myself or Andre. Let me pop over to the agenda. So there's sort of three topics that I would look at taking on, and obviously very briefly, 5G IoT trends, the security implications of that, Juniper security strategy, as well as a little bit of product and some SP security use cases. So if we look at the 5G and IoT trends, we've obviously moved from 2G, 3G, 4G. I once worked for a mobile operator where we were moving from 3G to 4G, and it was intense. It was a lot of work. And I think the move from 4G to 5G is just as intense as well. So, first of all, as we know, 5G has some incredible ambitious goals. You're looking at 1,000 times, volume of data, mobile data. You're looking at, 10 times, 100 times connected devices, and you're looking at really, really low latency that applications need for this for 5G. Obviously, it needs to be ultra reliable. If you look at things like self-driving cars, etc., and battery life needs to be low as well, because it's constant data throughput. So when it comes to security, it's important to consider what these ambitious performance goals mean to current security requirements. So where we are now and what is 5G going to bring in. So we know typically there's always a trade-off between performance and security, and 5G security needs to support and comply with 5G's ambitious goals and with the 5G performance goals as well. So for service providers, it's important to ask whether the current network security performance is able to keep up with the 5G overall performance goals. If not, without this investment in additional performance, security will end up becoming a bottleneck to overall network performance, and that's what we want to completely avoid. So as the networks are becoming and getting cloudified, it's important to think how these networks, from an architectural change perspective, would impact the security architecture. So as an example, previously most of the security deployment used physical equipment, and now physical would not be enough. We've got to look at virtual security, and virtual security also needs to be in place. And we need to reconsider where we need to place security in these in the network, especially from a 5G goal perspective. So to enable the network transformation, service providers and mobile operators, telcos, have been using new enabling technologies like SDN, software-defined networks, networking, NFV, CUPS, mobile edge computing, and network slicing, and the list can go on. There's so many different types of network transformation technologies that are coming out there. When we as Juniper, when we talk all about this, we for us SDN internally and in our marketing slides out there, it's a self-driving network. And maybe there's another time we can talk about how we've mapped up 5 steps for the self-driving network. So back to the security concerns. Adopting new technologies typically open up new potential attack services that organizations need to protect themselves from. So it's not only the service provider that need to protect itself from, but they also need to protect their end users and their enterprise as well. So different use cases have diverse requirements. We know this from the past, and it includes security policy as well. So with the new architecture and use cases that 5G introduces, all of which create new cybersecurity considerations and requirements, along with a varied set of underlying network requirements and parameters. Like for example, the parameters that are important for a mobile broadband service is quite different from the set of security parameters that defines the VR or the virtual reality use cases. Or for example, in network slicing, the ultra low latency category for connected vehicles is far different from virtual reality and so on as it goes to the different use cases. So the difficulty of securing such a wide variety of access and service demands by single integrated 5G network is totally, it's understandable. But we have solutions out there, and especially from a Juniper perspective, we worked closely with the mobile operators to ensure that not just from a product set, but from an integration set as well. So it's not only that the product set that Juniper provides must be able to secure Juniper equipment. It must be able to protect the entire network and have interoperability and integration with third-party equipment as well. So for MNOs, mobile network operators, security needs to be able to support network slicing for growing revenue from new market verticals, and different slices and tenants should they be logically isolated, they can have different security policies and control in there. So off to the Juniper network, Juniper security strategy part of it, of my presentation. Juniper, it's our coin term is Juniper Connected Security, and what it means is that the network is connected to security, and it's a layer that's on its own. It has to work with the network and understand what's going on in the network, and that's where we have things like streaming telemetry. We have our Contrail Health Bot, and we have automation systems in there that's continuously feeding the security system so they understand and know what's happening in the network in order to protect the network. So basically that safeguards users, applications, and the infrastructure by extending security to all points of connection across the network. So instead of merely bolting security features separately as an afterthought, using our SP experience, building best class networks, we've used our cybersecurity knowledge and expertise as well to put us in a unique position to provide visibility, advanced protection, as well as automation to every corner of the network using security. So from an endpoint to an edge, and to every cloud in between, hybrid cloud, public cloud, whether it's the edge, whether it's the core, whether it's in your data center, in your access. And that's the power of a threat-aware network. It's simple, it's intelligent, and it's connected. And not just connected to your NMS or your alert system, it's connected to every point of your network, ensuring that they are all secured and they are providing the security needed to ensure you're able to provide services to your customers. So over to the Juniper Connected Security portfolio. I want to spend probably a good couple minutes here just explaining from top down our portfolio set. So as I mentioned earlier, it connects to all points across the network, and whether using a eNode B or a gNode B, or whether it's a physical appliance-based EPC, or it's telco cloud, virtual EPC, 5G core, it's a DC, it's a service provider network, whether it's centralized or distributed, we have a security product fit for that. And again, I just want to highlight, it's our products that we build are based on third-party integration, are based on protocol openness. So we want to support and know that we can integrate in a network where there are third-party devices. So from an orchestration and management software point of view, we have the security director policy enforcer, and that's basically our sort of NMS management system of our security devices. And then in our security portfolio is our Contrail SD-WAN. So Contrail is our orchestrator, and one of the blades of that is SD-WAN. So we've taken the security of SD-WAN as one of the most important aspects, and that's why the SD-WAN product portfolio sits under our security teams. And then you look at things like Sky Enterprise and advanced threat protection. So those are your UTM type features out there. And then a Contrail Enterprise Multi-Cloud, again, falls under the Contrail orchestration system of where you can build private clouds and hybrid clouds there as well. And then secure analytics. We have to know what's going on in our networks. If we don't know what's going on in our networks, we become reactive and not proactive, and we end up falling behind and chasing after the attackers rather than stopping them right at the beginning. From a product point of view, we have the SRX range, which is our high-end firewall system. So it starts from branch firewalls, where you can start at the SRX 300s, 550s. It goes up into the mid range as well. And then obviously to the advanced security acceleration, where you're looking at telcos and SPs, mobile operators, the SRX 5000 series with our service provider card 3 that's just recently come out about a year ago. SPC3 has been a huge uptake. It's probably has about 11 times more capacity than the previous generation, and something great for our customers that are already on the MX, our flagship universal edge router. So we're building an SPC3 as well for MX as a security device, and that will work on the MX. So apart from it being the next gen routing platform, it can also now support next gen security service as well on there. I do want to touch a bit on CSRX and VSRX. So the CSRX firewall is a containerized version of the SRX series services gateway. It works with a low memory footprint. So basically, by using a Docker container in Contrail, the SRX can be installed, and it substantially reduces overhead because each container shares the Linux host's kernel in there. So that's pretty good. It deploys as a single container on the Docker engine, compute node running in a Contrail cluster. So it runs on Linux bare metal server as the hosting platform. And then we have, which I think was one of the first, if I'm not mistaken, containerized firewalls out there. Then we have the VSRX. So that's our virtual implementation of our SRX series firewalls. From a mobile edge computing perspective, from a cloud perspective, it's same feature parity as the physical devices, and it does come, and you can get substantial throughput through those. We're seeing a lot of uptake in the VEPC and in the cloud environments on that. A little bit more on some product just from the NFX range. So the NFX range is a part of our SD-WAN portfolio from a CP perspective. It's built on a project that we had with one of the world's biggest service providers, and it basically has VNFs on there. I think you can go from 4 up to 8 to 32, where you can add VNFs on there. And then talking about VNFs, if you look at our alliance partners, we do partner with some of the big software partners out there. Pulse Secure used to be a Juniper product, and then we obviously sold it off so they can concentrate on building Pulse Secure out. And then one thing I do want to mention, Carrero. We have a very tight relationship with Carrero, our DDoS mitigation solution. It does come in a full virtualized solution as well, and works pretty well out there. So that's from a product perspective. And then I want to move on to some security use cases. Okay, so I mean, from a security gateway perspective, gateway, just to give a bit of background. So the why of it, the endpoints connected by the S1 interface are often miles apart. So any data being sent over the LTE network sort of has a potential to travel across, a number of miles and towers or devices through to the EPC facility. So basically, it is very likely that the cellular MNO does not own or operate the physical connection in between for the backhaul, making it difficult to ensure the S1 interface is physically protected. And all IP-based system introduces certain security concerns that are not applicable to older cellular networks. Prior to LTE, if an adversary wanted to intercept traffic on a cellular network, specialized hardware was required. But with LTE, the transport mechanism between eNode B and the EPC is all IP-based. So the only things required to intercept traffic are, basic computers, network cable, and access to a port. So basically, you could easily be intercepted or eavesdropped or attacked. So what does a SEC gateway do? So the security gateway connects to an EPC and evolved packet core on the S1 interface, and between the base stations on the X2 interface, security gateway IPsec functionality protects traffic as it traverses the mobile backhaul. By obviously, IPsec inherently it will establish an encrypted and protected connection between the SP base station and the EPC network, right? So that's what that's how we protect traffic on the on the S1 interface. In addition, without the security gateway, so every MME, it's a node used for authenticating mobile devices, and S gateway would be required to perform an IPsec to terminate tunnels from base stations to the S1 and S1U. This would cause an unimaginable provisioning burden. So the security gateway simplifies the provisioning by being a central point of the IPsec concentration. From a Juniper perspective, typically we use the SRX 400 and 5000 series for our SEG deployments with the new SPC cards, as well as the VSRX in those virtual deployments. I just want to check how I'm doing for time there, John.
You've still got some time. Please proceed.
Okay, cool. So the GI firewall together with CGNAT, just the why again, it connects to the packet core on the GI LAN interface, and is used to protect the packet core and the UE endpoints against a variety of outside-in attacks, like such as snooping and theft of information. So the P gateway or the S gateway in the packet core originates the IP connection for mobile endpoints on the GI LAN. Traffic bound for these gateways must first traverse the GI firewall obviously in the ingress direction, and in the egress direction, traffic must traverse the GI firewall prior to being handed over to the edge router, data center, or core services. So the GI firewall protects against bad actors from scanning core resources for vulnerabilities, and also protects UE endpoints, which is the LTE devices, from being individually attacked from the public internet. It also prevents internal attacks, internal attacks from core services or the data center within the SP against other GI LAN services. So the GI firewall plays a crucial and a very important part in protecting the mobile network, the SP network out there. I think from a security perspective, we have I mean, probably thousands of SRXs in GI implementations across the world, across major operators. It's really one of our very strong points. We typically use the SRX 5000 series. I use for GI firewall implementations. Occasionally in small implementations, you can use the 4000. And again, together with SPC3 cards and the ability to scale high in those sessions, it's proven to be a real hit with the operators. And obviously we can do VSRX again with for virtual deployments, for scaling out architectures in there. And then the final use case that I want to go through, so the roaming firewall. So the roaming arrangements, or roaming arrangements, I guess you could call it, consists of three parts: a diameter, the GTP control plane, and the GTP bearer plane. So the roaming firewall protects both the GTP control plane and the GTP bearer plane, GTPU, part of the roaming interface. It protects basically both of these interfaces and is deployed at the border of the mobile service provider and wholesale providers. So the roaming firewall connects the packet core of the home network to the packet core of the visitor network. So basically, if you're roaming between partners, it connects the interface. You could say it connects the interface of your network to the network of the operator that you're visiting, and it can be programmed to specifically allow handover for home subscriber information or to other visited SPs and stuff like that there. The roaming firewall also enables normalization of the signaling, manages 3PP information, and if there's any protocol differences between the service providers. From a Juniper perspective, we typically deploy the mid-range SRXs here, depending on the requirements, which leads me to the point that the SRXs across the range mostly share the same feature parity, especially on the mid-range and high range. It comes out of the same engineering division that's in there. And I think that's it from me. Please reach out to myself or Andre if you have any questions, and we'll definitely look forward to going into some deep dives with you as well. And thank you to the rest of the panelists so far. You guys have done a really good presentation. Much appreciated.
Waseem, thank you so much. It's really great to hear you again, and especially this time on SMARTEXPO. I mean, those stats you put up there on the Internet of Things, IoT, and 5G are absolutely phenomenal. And I think if nothing else, it just gives all service providers, mobile operators, telcos a huge wake-up call as to what is coming down the line as 5G starts to roll out. Putting up that slide of yours, the Juniper connectivity connected security portfolio, I beg your pardon. Fantastic slide that I want to go back and look at that after this SMARTEXPO. Really good slide of yours. Thanks for that. And just great case studies. I mean, really, really good case studies. To be able to bring your presentation together, deliver a few really powerful case studies at the end there was phenomenal. So thank you very much for taking the time out, Waseem. Enjoyed having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, so Waseem, thanks. We're going to move on to our next presenter, Peter Goodwin. Unlike the other presenters, I've met Peter for the first time yesterday and was delighted to be able to hear his presentation and a bit of a dry run last night. And I can assure you this is worth staying for. Peter is the last presenter before we do our spin to win, so be sure to hang until the end. So let me introduce Peter to you. Peter Goodwin has been in the service. He is the service provider sales director for Infoblox Middle East Africa. Prior to his current role, Peter served as the sales engineering director for EMEA, and before that, technical director for the service provider line of business for Infoblox, covering all of Europe, where he has helped many operators secure their DNS infrastructure and build out resilient, scalable, and highly available networks. Before joining Infoblox, Peter worked at Netcordia, Hewlett-Packard, Vodafone, and British Aerospace. Highly qualified to speak to you today on this topic. Please welcome Peter Goodwin. Right, and let's just get that.
Let me just see if I can share my screen.
I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to hand you control of the screen. Give me 1 second, Peter. Right. The screen is yours.
Let me know if you can see my screen, John.
See you and your screen. No, we can't see your screen yet. We can't see your screen yet. There we go. There we go. Fantastic.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Over to you. I'm going on mute. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. So just today, what I want to just talk about is some of the things that the trends that are affecting service providers that Infoblox sees today. And funny enough, it's interesting to watch Waseem's presentation because there's an overlap between how Juniper and how Infoblox see the world today. And then just touch on a few things where Infoblox helps RSP customers protect their network and their subscribers. So if we look at some of the things to consider, 5G and network function virtualization, they're bringing great promise, but they're also bringing dramatic changes in how people do things. I'm not going to go through 5G and NFV in any great detail because it's such a wide subject. I'm just going to touch on one or two things with that. The Internet of Things is having an impact, mainly because it's unmanaged devices and lots of them. And then there's cybersecurity, which just increases day by day. So we touch on these three things. There's a bunch of other things we could consider, but we've only got 15 minutes today. One of the big things, in my view, from a DNS perspective, which is where Infoblox is coming from, we supply DNS, DHCP, IP address management solutions into our service provider customers. But when we look at 5G, there's possibly two things that will affect how DNS is consumed and deployed within an operator's network. The first one is the slicing of the network. And I think Waseem actually mentioned this as well during his, where different traffic will have different SLAs in different slices. So if you look at low data rate IoT devices like HVAC systems and just remote sensors, you might put those into a non-critical IoT slice. You might have a separate one for very low latency IoT things, such as medical infrastructure or automotive remote controlled cars, that kind of thing. The mobile broadband might be in a separate slice. Today, how we do this is there isn't slicing. There's one single DNS server typically, or one or multiple in POPs, handling all the traffic. But if you start slicing the network, you're probably going to want to put individual DNS servers within those slices, so there's no central point of failure. And also with the way that 5G brings in a bigger connection density and lower latency, we're probably going to see more operators push sites nearer to the subscribers. So rather than having one or two data centers and everything centralized, we're going to see more edge computing. We're going to see more service delivery pushing to the edge, including DNS. And if we add that to network slicing, we're going to see more DNS servers put into the network. How that is consumed is going to be a challenge. I'll come on to how Infoblox has changed over the past 2 years to help operators realize cost savings with it. And one of the things that's very aligned with 5G is that push to NFV, or network function virtualization. Because if you're going to have an aggressive deployment of more sites, more services, pushing onto a generic virtualized platform should make the operators more agile, should make them quicker to bring services to market. And I like to use the analogy of it's an NFV wave. And if you take that a step further and we look at surfing as an analogy with waves, there are some operators where they've deployed their telco cloud. They're in the pipe in surfing terms, they're on the best part of the wave and they're really feeling good about it. In practice, what I see from most of the customers I talk to is everyone's starting on that journey. They're waiting for the right wave. They're picking the vendor to provide the NFV orchestration and platform. And it's a risky road. The chances of someone making a mistake and things not being performance very high. So a lot of operators who are typically risk averse are really looking at how they pick the vendors and what technologies they can actually push onto NFV early. And from an Infoblox perspective, our view on this is trying to, one, help the operator make that transition and that journey risk-free. And we can do that in a couple of ways. Our service to the subscribers and to the network can be deployed in an NFV environment today. We support OpenStack and various other cloud providers. But we can also work on the orchestration side to automate allocation of IP addresses and creation of DNS names, so that as a virtual function is spun up, people can access it or machines can access it by name, which is important because DNS is the first thing that anything does, is a lookup to find out what the IP address of the resource is before it initiates a transaction. We can help automate that as part of the undercloud. So that's 5G NFV. If I look at IoT, and this slide is one of Gartner's slides where they've made a bunch of predictions over time, and two of which pertain to IoT. And these really interest me because if 95% of new products are going to contain IoT, they're going to connect over a 5G network or a fixed line network through an operator. And I mean, you just think about it, the fridges that you buy in the future will sit there connected to the network, probably ordering food as you use it. You know, the TVs now are connecting, the DVDs are connecting. You know, there's so many devices that now have an IP address in a house and have internet access. And the biggest impact, I think, is on that security spend. And this is an interesting one for me. Gartner say that half of the spend isn't going to be just on protecting it. I thought it was going to be way more than that. It's going to be on fixing what's happened because of IoT. And that's a lot of money going into fixing problems that are being introduced in the network by IoT devices coming on board. Infoblox can help with this because DNS is typically the first thing that any transaction starts with. If you have IoT devices like HVAC controllers, they're only really going to connect to one place. And if you know the IP networks that they're on, you can just look to see where the DNS queries are going. If they're going somewhere they shouldn't, you know something's going wrong with that IoT device. So DNS is a really good control point for looking at threats in general, but with IoT, very much so. And we can help with that. And then just looking at cybersecurity, I won't go through the numbers. Everyone knows too many threats, not enough people. But if I look at the amount of job opportunities that exist around the world today for cybersecurity professionals, one, you kind of think maybe we were in the wrong business and we should go into cybersecurity because the jobs are out there. You cannot get enough people to solve the problem. You can't throw more people at it. It's very difficult. They don't exist today. So what do? You have to be smarter about how you deal with the incidents that come up from threats being identified in your network. We can help with that. I'll come on to a little bit about that in a few slides. So given those trends, Infoblox as a company, we've made a journey over the last 2 or 3 years to get to where we are today, where we can help you. I mean, our solution's always been secure by default. We run it now on virtualized infrastructure, just as easily as we can run it on physical infrastructure. And we can provision easily our service in an NFV environment. The way that we've changed over time from a packaging perspective is we used to sell software and hardware bundled together, and the boxes are blue, but they fit into a standard 19-inch rack and you connect up to the network. A couple of years ago, we started separating, and we would sell software and hardware separately. And this was because we went into the virtual world and you don't need the hardware. So we de-aggregated or disaggregated the software from the hardware. And then over the last 2 years, we've started moving more into selling virtual, but also selling containerized solutions. We see the future as being on containerized software. Our latest platform is based on containers. Our underlying platform that we still can sell as physical appliances, the software is containerized inside it. And we've also changed the consumption model. So historically, all the vendors sold perpetual solutions, and then every 5 years, the hardware would need refreshed because motherboards had been changed, memory had changed, disks had changed, and we had to bring new models to market. That's going away, and more vendors now are offering subscription-based pricing because that's the way that the American vendors are going. We've also introduced service provider licensing, or SPLA, and this is to address a need for agility and flexibility in how we deploy within a 5G environment. And it's a kind of a different way for us as far as how we price and offer to the market. The first thing is it's a single agreement and it's capacity based. Typically, it's 1 to 5 years as a term, and that's dependent on the customer. The minimum's 1 year, and we can do up to 5. The interesting thing is it's capacity based. So you pay for the underlying usage. And if we look at subscriber DNS, where say you've got 1 million subscribers, they're generally going to probably generate around 100,000 queries per second as a rule of thumb. But if you're deploying into a network, you don't want just that amount. You need to over provision to cope with spikes and unknown demand at a particular time, or even attacks. And my recommendation would be a 10 times overcapacity is a good amount to have to cope with the unexpected demands, the attacks and whatever. So our capacity model is based on the underlying usage. So in this case, my example would be 100,000 queries per second. I would recommend that the operator or the customer then puts out at least 10 million capacity into the network. And you can do that in a number of ways. You can do that in 2 data centers and just have 2 massive virtual machines doing it. But the way that we've worked out the best thing we can do for our customers is to allow for unlimited virtual machine deployment. And this is because as you go on that journey to 5G and NFV, today you don't know how many sites you'll end up with. You don't know how many slices you'll end up with. You may end up with a virtual machine in each slice and a set of servers in each POP. Being able to deploy unlimited amounts of virtual machines, and they all count against that common usage, means that you have the agility and the flexibility to pick the best architecture you want, deploy when you want, where you want, how you want. Because the subscriber base isn't going to make any more queries because you've got more sites. They're going to make the same amount whether it's 2 sites or 100. And the way that the capacity is calculated, for recursive subscriber DNS, it's on queries per second. For authoritative DNS, it's on the number of objects. For DHCP, it's on the number of leases. And the more you have, the bigger the discount on the price. And then just to look at how you can add security to your customers. As I mentioned before, DNS is a really good control point. And funnily enough, most malware, I think over 91% of malware, uses DNS at some point, whether it's for command and control, whether it's for data exfiltration, they all use it. So DNS is a really good place to stop it. From an attack point of view, it's a really good place to try and get out, because every firewall lets port 53 DNS traffic go to the internet, because you cannot resolve names without doing that. And unless you're a DNS server, it's difficult to understand the context of what query is good and what query is bad. So DNS is a really good control point for this. And we look at it from three ways. Reputational is looking at the threat data and the threat intelligence and deciding whether a query triggers one of the indicators. And this is more looking at how we protect the subscribers than anything else. It's the reputational feeds. We have our own threat data. You can also import third parties into our servers. The signature-based is where we're looking at protecting the infrastructure, and we call this advanced DNS protection. We're looking at doing DPI just on the traffic that's hitting the DNS server. And we're trying to identify 18 different attack vectors. We have around 300-400 rules that look at the traffic and decide what's going on. So this is signature-based. The third thing is behavioral. It's based around machine learning and behavior analytics of what individual IP addresses are sending as DNS queries. So DNS is stateless, it's UDP typically. We don't keep state on a particular user. This is trying to do that. And we can do it both on-premise and in the cloud. Some things you need massive compute power for. Can't do it on-premise. We can in our cloud solution. And that's looking at domain generation algorithms and the way that malware changes things quickly to avoid detection. On-premise, we can look at DNS tunneling, where people try to bypass billing using a DNS tunnel. And that works well on-premise. Combined with the cloud solution, we can stop just about all the DNS threats that we see. The way that they hang together on the protocol server, ADP is the first line of defense. This is just to protect the server itself. We look at volumetric and signatures. If you've got Arbor in the network, brilliant. That's the best volumetric solution you're going to get. We can then just look at the signature stuff to protect it from DNS specific attacks. If you're looking at protecting the subscribers, then the reputational feed fits on with all the threat data, both from us and from third parties. And then the slow and low behavior, which is the behavior analytics, also sits on. As the queries go in, when we receive them, we go through these three functions with minimal impact. Right? We're still sub 1 millisecond on our answers for this. And then anything that goes through it is just normal traffic going back. It all comes part of the Blocks 1 threat defense solution that we've got, which includes a thing called Tide, where we have 26 feeds of our own, plus a bunch of third parties. You can also add your own to this and other third parties, and then you can consume them in different formats on different platforms within your organization. Part of it is the DNS firewall, which takes the indicators at a DNS level onto the DNS server. Threat Insight is the behavior analytics, and the dossier tool is essentially it's a lookup tool. And this allows security analysts to collate a lot of information up front to save them time in gathering it all, but then allow them to pivot from one indicator to another while they're doing the initial investigation to identify if something is a threat. One of the figures that Gartner have come up with in the past is most security teams deal with about 4% of the events they see. It's really that small a number. And most of it is because they don't have the time to gather all the information to make a quick decision. This is a way of saving time. On the Tide platform, these are just some examples of the third-party feeds that you can get through Infoblox today. You can add your own as well, and then we will just merge it in with the data that we give you. And that's pretty much it from me. And I just thought I'd finish with this, which is, it's our company vision, the relentless pursuit of simple. We're trying to make your lives as simple as we can. And it's mainly because we think all networks should be worry-free. And if you want to go through any of the things I've spoken about today, and that we've got a ton more, but I've only got 15 minutes, quite happy to spend a lot more time going into detail with our solution engineers and our solution architects with you on that if you so wish. Other than that, I'll hand it back to you, John.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. And again, a great presentation. We had the pleasure, as I said, of getting a dry run last night, and you certainly delivered today. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So yeah, just to pick up again on that IoT, the role that Infoblox is playing in the network with regard to the DNS. And I think what's interesting for me, and you'll know that one of our last sessions in this first lot of 5 of SMARTEXPO is automation, and we're going to be talking about that because of the change in the business model and the cost structure in service providers. And I think hearing you talk about more security problems, less people, it speaks to automation, and I think that was very pertinent in your presentation. So thank you very much, Peter. Great job there. And now we're going to move on. We are running a little bit tight on time, so the aim is to finish up quite quickly now. And the next thing we're going to do is just recognize the main sponsors. So Core to Africa has sponsored these events, SMARTEXPO, and we want to just give them a little bit of a shout out. Core to Africa, founded in 2010 by Stanley Fryman, Rudolph Venter, and Claire Kanan. And oops, there we go. We have solutions in subscriber networks, analytics, automation, and protection. Professional services in multiple areas of the business, which takes a project from inception right through to completion. We have a complete package of support packages, and those go from reactive, enhanced, proactive to optimized. And locations: Mauritius, South Africa, Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya. So thank you to Core to Africa for sponsoring the SMARTEXPO events, and I hope you're going to be joining us on future ones. Right, so now we have the spin to win, which is really exciting. We have 4 $100 Amazon gift vouchers to give away. 3 are going to be given away today. 1 we're going to hold back for a person who completes the survey. So a little bit of an incentive there. When you get the email, complete the survey, and you have a chance to win twice. You could win now, today, and maybe again. So I'm going to hand over control now. Denise, where are you there? All right. I'm going to hand control over to Denise. She is the Chief Event Organizer for SMARTEXPO. And I am going to share with you, Denise. I'm going to take my screen away and give you the camera, and off you go.
Good day, everybody.
Right.
I just firstly want to start off with saying thank you to everybody for...
Is your microphone on?
Sorry. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for joining our SMARTEXPO virtual live protection event today. We're very pleased to have everybody on this event. And I'm just going to move straight into announcing the 3 winners of our $100 Amazon gift vouchers. So we got Taduzi Dlamini and David Bushaki and Pravan Mudli. So well done to the 3 of you, and we'll send you an email with that gift voucher. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Denise. That's wonderful news. I'm going to take control back, if I may. And there we go. So that's really great. So 3 winners there, and we'll be in touch with you soon and forward on your $100 gift vouchers. So there we have it. So the survey is up for another gift voucher. If you complete that, send it back to us. You'll go back into the hat and come out for a draw again. Let me put my camera on. There we go. Right. Next up is the next events. So we have the next 3 events coming up. We have on the 27th of May in 2 weeks' time, we have SMARTEXPO Networks, really exciting. We have the 10th of June, SMARTEXPO Analytics, and on the 24th of June, SMARTEXPO Subscriber. So be sure, go to coreafrica.net/SmartExpo to register. And don't forget, on all of these events, our great OEMs, in this case, we had support, as you know, from the 4 speakers. It was Netscout, it was Oracle, it was Juniper, it was Infoblox, all sponsored, $100 gift vouchers for the winners. So we thank them. And that the email you get shortly will have the link to the archive, the survey, and we will announce the winners. So that's coming up shortly. We are on LinkedIn and we are on Facebook. So be sure to follow us on both of those platforms, and we'll keep you updated as to what's happening with SMARTEXPO moving forward. Right, so thank you again to the 4 OEMs that joined us today, gave fantastic presentations. I'm sure you'll agree. I think we're on time. We are at 11:31 South African time, so we're 1 minute behind. Thank you for staying here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much.